Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the speaker session organized by eCell NSUT. And the speaker we have with us is Mr. Bhaskar Majumdar. Mr. Mr. Bhaskar is the founder and managing partner at Unicorn India Ventures, a Mumbai-based VC fund. He has had seat at both tables, for he is a seasoned media and technology executive and an entrepreneur, as well as an established early stage investor and advisor within the UK and India. He has recently added another notch to his belt, having authored a book that has been published in January of 2021 entitled Everything Started as Nothing. The speaker session will be fun and the fundamentals of entrepreneurship, that is, decoding entrepreneurship. Now, this speaker session will be moderated by me and Ritik Sinha, both part of Eastern NSUT. And we just hope that you guys have a brilliant time with Mr. Bhaskar, and we hope to an amazing session ahead. So we'll start with the session. I'm guessing that we'll start with the questions, sir.
Yeah, we'll start with the session and people can keep the questions for the end. In the end, we can have a question answer session if that's okay.
Okay, sir. So sure. Ritik, you can start.
Yeah. So, hello, students. One of the advantages of being a VC has been the privilege of having discussions with some of the brightest minds of the country, studying at premier institutes like yours. The discussions I have with students around their business ideas, around the perception of New India, and how most of you all view the world fills me with optimism for the future. The sheer opportunity to experience this positive vibe that is created when I meet the young generation makes me wonder at the possibilities that we as a nation have. I also believe that this is the stage that you all are in when the seeds of entrepreneurship are sown in the minds of each one of you because you are creative, you think out of the box. This is the stage when you question the status quo and do not accept the answers that are doled out to you, but you want to find it out yourself. These are the questions that are a must for an entrepreneur. So today is the time when a lot of you should enkindle the entrepreneurship spirit. Every week at Unicorn Ventures, the fund which I started, we get well over 300 business plans from students, youngsters, seasoned professionals across various domains, across various walks of life. For a country of our size of 1.3 billion, this number is perhaps justifiable. But entrepreneurship is a leap of faith. And though my team and I are always looking for a good idea, we obviously do our due diligence on the idea, understand the business model. But what I personally am trying to constantly gauge is the intent of the person who's setting up this business. Entrepreneurship, as they say, is a mindset. Not everyone is made for it. And realizing this small fact about oneself can be very crucial. It isn't merely about an implementation of an idea. It is about risk taking, about putting your head above the parapet and trying to create something out of nothing. One may be successful, very successful as a corporate executives, or some of you are, I'm sure, are very successful as students or in research. But these do not mean that one would have the entrepreneurial DNA. So what I thought today is I would speak to all of you on basically what it takes to be an entrepreneur and what is this entrepreneurial DNA all about. This is relevant more so for those of you who are looking at doing your own startups, but nonetheless, this is relevant even for those of you who are looking to enter the corporate world. As an entrepreneur, prior to starting the fund, I had personally experienced the whole gamut of the journey. And trust me when I say it is not a walk in the park. It may look all glamorized the way many of the stories that we see in the media today try to depict it, but that is far from the truth. Open any business newspaper and magazine, and success stories of the startups are aplenty. Platforms such as Forbes 30 under 30, Fortune's 40 under 40 give a quick and instant gratification to entrepreneurs and satiate their egos. Don't get me wrong, such platforms matter and they help to motivate and celebrate all the risk and hard work undertaken by an entrepreneur. But this media hype in recent times has added to the glamour quotient for startups and entrepreneurship. This has led to many students like you, and some young executives who want to become entrepreneurs because of the perceived coolness associated with it. This is far from reality, as the startup journey is fraught with difficulties and sometimes it gets very, very lonely. Irrespective of the type of startup and the age of the entrepreneur, all startup founders need to be aware of some of these challenges they will face as they begin their journey. So today I thought I would speak to you all mostly about the journey, mostly about what it takes to be an entrepreneur and what is this entrepreneurial DNA that I keep talking about. Even when India has woken up to the potential of entrepreneurship, Indian parents are still hesitant when told that their children want to pursue their business. And this pressure of being an unknown and not being under the protective umbrella of a government job or a large company enhances parental pressure for the young founder. As you embark on the journey, it is important for you to have the support of your family on this. Now, for you, most of you, it would be your parents, later, it would be your spouses, and it is very, very important that you have total support of your near and dear ones. Because for an entrepreneur, there is no clear demarcation between his home and his office, and the highs and lows of the journey are felt by the entire family. Having the family support is therefore a must, and that is why, early stage investors like us, we spend a substantial time trying to gauge the family aspect of an entrepreneur, because this brings us to understand the risk taking and the sustainability potential. Any person who's wanting to start on his own needs to be mentally prepared to move away from the regular lifestyle, and you need the unstinted support of your family. The pressures of a startup will forever be there, but one cannot afford to have any extraneous pressures from the family, because this only creates further problems for the business. All of this will have an impact on an individual personally. There will be two casualties: your health and the time you spend with your family and friends. There will be occasions when you will have to cancel last minute meeting with friends or not go to the odd cousin's wedding. Although all this sounds scary and intimidating, believe you me when I say that the rewards of being an entrepreneur far outweighs all these risks. Therefore, if you people feel that you have what it takes to be entrepreneur, and some of the points I'm going to speak in the next few slides, go for it. Do not balk, but go with it to pursue your dreams. Entrepreneurship is being happy and proud in your own skin. What does this mean? As you depart the portals of the institute, some of you will get the best jobs in the country, and good luck. And there will be others among you who will want to start your own entrepreneurship ventures. Remember, when you start your own venture, you will be a nobody. Those of you who will be working for large enterprises will be known by the company you're working with. You will carry the visiting cards of the company, and the company will provide you the status symbol. But then, those of you who are on your own, you will have to get used to this anonymity and the fact that you will not be known. Today, all of y'all are there together in the institute. 2 years, 3 years later, some of you will want to do your own startup venture. That person will be alone. Another batchmate of yours will be working in a large enterprise. He will be posted somewhere. He will have all the corporate trappings. He will have a calling card, and he will do well in the perceived to be doing better than you in the society. Now, these add a lot of pressure throughout one's life, but especially at the stages you guys will be setting off on your own. Therefore, these are some of the things you guys will need to be aware of. Even I face the same. One of the challenges I personally grappled with when I started my first startup, Recreate Solutions, way back in 2000, was the sheer anonymity, the sheer being unknown as a startup founder. I, of course, had about 10 years of corporate experience. When I left, I was in a senior global leadership in a very large global media company, and I had enjoyed the trappings of the corporate world. When I started my venture, I was suddenly bereft of the corporate calling card. And in every discussion I would have, I would be on the defensive whenever someone asked me, "What are you doing now?" And I would try to draw on the credibility of my past corporate career. I would always qualify what I'm doing by saying that the startup I'm running is backed by one of the biggest VCs in the world. And the fact that I kept recruiting people and had number of people. I'm sure the people who would ask me these questions and my colleagues could perceive the discomfort I had in answering these questions. This was fundamentally a manifestation of my inherent insecurity. It took me around 2 years to grow out of this mindset. And once I made peace with myself, there was no looking back. Entrepreneurship is a state of mind where you always have to bounce back. We have heard of the intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, social quotient. I'm sure in some of your subjects, maybe industrial psychology or some other subjects, you would have studied these things. But the make and break quotient for an entrepreneur is what I call the adversity quotient. This is the measure of the ability to go through a rough patch without losing one's bearings. For an early stage founder, every day adversity stares you in the face, and you need to be able to take this on the chin and move on. We think that entrepreneurs exhibit a streak of narcissism, craziness, and an infectious optimism. But what is not well known is that successful founders need to have a tough mind to go through the ups and downs of this journey. While passion drives an entrepreneur, he cannot be emotional. Often passionate people tend to be emotional, but that is not the case with entrepreneurs. The life of an early stage founder is akin to that of a roller coaster ride. On days, you will be faced with rejections, making you suffer from a crisis of confidence, which toggles alongside an emotional high, bordering sometimes on arrogance when things are going right. The strangest thing is that in the life of a startup, the highs and lows can be experienced by the founders within hours. From euphoria to thinking the world is falling apart, back again to euphoria, all are a part of the daily cycle of an entrepreneur. You have a good call with a client, who wants to buy your till now untested product. This sends you into an emotional high. Only few hours later, that high will be shattered when you get a rejection from an potential investor and whose funding was necessary for you to be able to complete the product. These highs and lows can sometimes be very difficult to handle. And it is no secret that many startup founders have now started to suffer from mental ailment. This is some of the underbellies which are never discussed openly. And I'm happy to say that only now people have started to come out to discuss these things. As one wishes to embark on the journey of entrepreneurship, one needs to be aware of these underbellies. And that is why while I give the positive sides of entrepreneurship, I openly talk about these, especially to young students like you, so that you take a concerted call when you do your startup. Azim Premji has rightly said that the single most important attribute for a founder is to have equanimity, which basically means you're stable, you're not down in the dumps when you get rejections or flying high when things happen. This equanimity sees you through as a founder, as a leader in a setup which is very, very chaotic. Entrepreneurship, Peter Thiel had rightly described in his book 0 to 1 as having no optionality. It is a one-way street. You must burn the bridge of return, else you will always look at the escape route once you hit a speed bump. Remember, to succeed as an entrepreneur, you must not look at it as an option, and in case you fail, that you will go back to a plan B. Nowadays I see a lot of young founders who come to me and say that I want to try my hand at startup, and if I fail, I will go back to a job. To these young founders, I say, do not waste your time. Because if you have this idea, if you have this notion, if you have this mindset that you are out there to do a startup, mainly to, have a stamp in your CV, you're bound to fail. When you enter a startup, you must think that this is the only way for you to survive. And then and only then will you make it happen. So once again, my advice to young folks like you is get into entrepreneurship, but don't do it because it is seen now to be a cool thing to do, a sexy thing to do, an in thing to do. Don't do it because you open Economic Times and you read about unicorns happening every day. Don't do it because you know someone who has made millions of money out of it. Yes, all of these things will happen. But the reason why you want to do it is very, very different. You have to do it because if you feel you have a passion for an idea, if you are inherently evangelist, then and only then go ahead and start, because it's a tough journey. The point I'm again and again trying to reiterate to you all, it's a very tough journey. Next, yeah. To be a successful entrepreneur, I had just mentioned, you have to be an evangelist. An evangelist is someone who will constantly have to keep talking about your vision, about your product, about why you are doing it, because you have to motivate the team around you. You have to constantly show to new investors that this is why you are living. You have to show to your customer that although untested, you are willing to go that extra yard to see the success of it. So being an evangelist is the essence of being an entrepreneur. To be a successful entrepreneur, you must have the audacity to ask. In a startup, you are always asking people for something. You're asking your employees to buy into your vision and join you at reduced salaries. You are asking your potential customers to buy your products. You're asking investors to back your vision. You're asking the media to write stories about you. You are always asking. So you cannot be a diffident person who's not out there asking questions. You must wear your passion on your sleeves. That is what being an evangelist is all about. This evangelism must be contagious, so that before you know it, when you meet someone by luck, he will turn out to be a person who will buy your product. A lot of people ask me about luck. I say yes, luck and serendipity is very important in the life of an entrepreneur. But that is because an entrepreneur, because of his evangelism, whenever he gets a chance meeting with someone, or whenever he sees a door half or little open, he goes into it all out. That is why you entrepreneurs don't wait for luck. All of us have lucky incidents. It is only the entrepreneurs who make use of it. Other people let it go by the wayside. The other trait, which is very important for entrepreneurs to inculcate within themselves, is the ability to take rejections. Rejections and living through them is what makes the life journey of a startup founder. Again, as I said before, you will have to be able to take no for an answer, not only from your potential investors and customers, but also from friends of yours who you've known over the years, whom you want to join your company and buy into your vision, leaving their cushy jobs. They will tell you no. They will tell you they don't think your business will go anywhere else. But it is for you to take these no's, be steadfast, and move on. The other point is you have to be persuasive. It is a wrong notion that it is said that startup founders tend to be people for whom it is the my way or the highway. They are people who have to be constantly, they have to be persuasive, because you are always trying to convince people to buy into your vision, to understand where you are coming from, especially when it comes to team building. You must be able to be persuasive. And the other point, especially to folks like you all, most of whom I guess are engineers in this group, is that, as engineers, most of us tend to be very strong in operations. We tend to be very very execution oriented in our thinking. We possibly lack the commercial acumen and what it takes to be able to talk and convince others. I think this is a skill which each of you need to imbibe on. There is no formula as to how you will imbibe this skill, but this is where the difference between being a good product person versus being a good founder comes through. You must be able to articulate your vision and take people along. That leadership skill is what differentiates a founder from anyone else. It is very important that you understand your own strengths and you gear up for that before you embark on the entrepreneurial journey. Many of you all fancy entrepreneurship, I'm sure, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you fundamentally are more comfortable in a structured environment. You enjoy professionally when things are well-defined path and when there are clear role definitions. A lot of you, instead of creating a new plan, a new vision, you tend to work, and especially as engineers, you tend to work in systems or in large processes where you bring in efficiencies in these ecosystems. If you're one such person, then do not get into the startup train. This journey is not meant for you. To be a successful entrepreneur, you will be able to, as the proverb goes, thrive in chaos. Change is the only constant you will have. Plans in a startup are always changing. Even as you roll out a product and get customer feedback, you have to relaunch it again and again. And while you're doing that, you suddenly realize that you're ending the end of the funding runway. So you will either have to shut the company or you will have to do something else. You will need to review your marketing budget because you're short of funding. Unlike an enterprise, unlike a large company where these things are all stabilized, there a product launch happens every 3 months, 4 months, different departments are working. Here you're constantly rolling out a product, getting marketing feedback, taking it back to the development team, relaunching a product. So you're always making changes as you go along the way. In the startup world, nothing is definitive. The entrepreneur must survive. As I keep saying, you must roll with the punches. You must, another very important point, and this is not easy for quite a few people, and you guys will understand it after a few years of working experience, I guess, is that you need to balance your long term strategic view along with what you're wanting to do immediately. In a large company, those who are doing routinal stuff, they are doing only routinal stuff. They don't know the larger perspective of the company. And those who are deciding the larger perspective of the company, they don't know how to do routinal stuff because there are layers of management in between. In a startup, you have to do both. You have to be able to give a 3 year, 5 year strategic plan to your investor. And at the same time, you must be able to do the nuts and bolts of cash flow management, be able to talk to every individual employee that because of cash flow, their salaries will be delayed by a week, 2 weeks. So this balancing act is something which very many people, including people who worked in large companies, find it difficult to handle. So once again, entrepreneurs will succeed when you are comfortable in your own skin. Get into entrepreneurship with your eyes wide open. Be aware of all the what's under the veneer of a startup glamour. And my personal advice to all of you is, go for it if your entrepreneurship is your calling. But once you decide to go for it, you must then know how to cross the Rubicon and start your journey. So in the next 2 or 3 slides, I'm going to just talk you through typical questions that, students like you all have in your mind. And, whenever I speak in these sessions, these are some of the typical questions that I'm asked. So I just thought I'd touch upon them. So one big question is, how do you choose your co-founders? It is very, very important in your startup journey to have co-founders because it's a very, very lonely journey over there. And there are VCs like us who invest in companies who only have co-founders. We all know that the best friends we make during our university education, they stay with us for our life. In my case, that is absolutely correct. Some of my closest friends, some of my 3 a.m. friends are all friends who I've had from my IIT days. And that's how I even found my co-founder for my first entrepreneurial venture. Being at a university like yours, you become a part of a community. Staying together for 3-4 years means you understand the person well. You have a common bonding right throughout, and you look out for each other. So these are all great traits to have when you're looking at a co-founder. But always remember, and this is where a lot of mistakes students make, is when you're choosing your co-founder, you must find someone who's out there to complement you in terms of skill sets and in terms of temperament. We make the mistake that we have co-founders who are identical to us. We think that the person with whom we love to have a banter, love to have share a beer with, or have a coffee. I think we tend to believe that these are the people who are ideal co-founders for us. My submission to you is no. When you choose your co-founder, you look at it with a separate prism rather than looking at it from a friendship and compatibility perspective. It is essential to have complementarity. So if one of you is very strong in product and technology, the other person must be more a commercial and outgoing person who can be the front face of the company. One of you is a person who is very highly emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that. The other person must be one who will be a stabilizing factor, who will tell him when chips are down that tomorrow is just another day, get on with it. And someone who will also, when you are feeling high and want to conquer the world, say that there is only so little we can do now with our limited constraints. So This complementarity is what makes or breaks a partnership. It is not someone with whom you would like to spend all the time. And most of us, me included, tend to make this mistake. And especially as you come out of the portals of your institute, you will have your friendships which are very strong, very deep. So be careful about this. uh, the other question which I'm frequently asked is, how does one start on the entrepreneurial journey? So is there a eureka moment, or is it just a sequence of activities, or or a sudden flashpoint where I have an idea? Is something I have learned on the job or done a research in, can I translate this to an idea? To be brutally honest with you, there's no right or wrong answer to this. So far, no one will be able to tell you when is the right time for you to start. I keep quoting this Chinese proverb which says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. So if you have an idea you're passionate about, go for it. Unless you get on with it, unless you get into the heart of it, you will never know if it works. The other thing is, never think of the macro. This I keep telling young people, because all of us today are surrounded so much by news media, we keep thinking about the macro. Is it a good time post COVID? Will the global financial crisis hit us? Is the GDP doing well? Will the next elections have a change of government? All of this honestly do not matter to a startup. Because the startups are so small in the microcosm of the larger place that you can survive and keep growing. That, in a sense, is what a startup is. In fact, we all know of documented stories where during the last financial crisis, we had some of the best startups develop, whether it was Airbnb, whether it was Venmo, whether it was Uber. All of these started during the last financial crisis. I'm sure during post COVID also there will be a large number of global businesses. From the fund, we are seeing very, very interesting startups founded by young founders, founded by seasoned founders during the COVID crisis. So don't think of the macro. In a sense, if there is an idea you're passionate about, and I'll reflect a bit on what you mean by that in the next slide, just go for it. Don't think too much about what the world is, where the world is, just go for it. Another question which often I'm asked is, uh, I have an idea, but whenever I see I have found X has done it, Y has done it, how can I come with an idea that is absolutely unique because everything I try to do, someone else has done it? Always remember, ideas are cheap. It is only about execution. It is how you execute, how much of your planning you do, how you position the company, how you position your product, and what is the larger pain point you're trying to solve. This will be the difference between success and failure. Very few people can be a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk and come with ideas which are path breaking. And honestly, India is not yet ready for that. In a sense, go for an idea that you think there is a market for, even if the idea is done somewhere else. Let's take the example I keep saying about Ola. When Bhavish launched Ola, he knew Uber was there in place throughout the world. There was nothing new in what he was trying to do. He was fundamentally trying to replicate app-based cab hailing service, full stop. But the way he went about it was in a totally different manner for the country and the market he was operating. You know, he realized that people in India carry cash, so he had cash while Uber did not. He realized that India, because of the crowd, people will either consciously or subconsciously get onto a wrong car. He created the OTP system. He realized that we Indians love to chat, talk always while we are on the move. He created the Wi Fi within the cabs. Unlike the West, we are clued on to news, we are clued on to movies. He created the OTT in the cabs. He realized that unlike the West, where there is public toilets clearly marked, in India there is no public toilet. So through the apps you can find out your nearest toilets. So what he did, he took an idea which was there globally, but he executed it brilliantly. And that, my friends, in essence, is what you as startup founders must do. You must execute an idea which may be yours, which may not be yours, but execution is what matters. And therefore, correlated with this idea, I see a lot of startup founders keep the ideas very close to their chest. You feel that your idea will get stolen. You don't discuss your idea. But that is where a lot of us again make the mistake, because it's all in execution and not in the idea. You must go out with your idea, talk to competitors, talk to people within the ecosystem and get their feedback. Otherwise you will just be in a totally outside the competition world. In my book, and in yesterday last week sorry this week's I think it was on Tuesday article in Brand Equity, was something I had coined the Koro Mangala syndrome, because a lot of these startups are born out of Bangalore, in and around Koromangala. Some of the best startups are there. Unfortunately, today the startup founders have what I call the Koromangala syndrome, where they talk to each other and they think they have a great idea. They don't go out of the goldfish bubble that has been created in and around there. So get your idea out in the market, talk to people, talk to your potential customers and get feedback from them. That is what an idea is all about. And the last point, which I want to talk about, which is very close to my heart, is all about failures. Failures for me are stepping stone to success. I want all of you to understand that risk is intrinsic to entrepreneurship. So is failure. To fail is very common in the entrepreneurial journey. Always remember, it is the business or an idea that fails. A true entrepreneur never fails. This is very close to my heart, and as a society, we do not like to fail. But slowly, it is good to notice that we have started to embrace failures. I know of many successful founders, entrepreneurs who have dealt with failure and come out with the second and third idea, which have been whooping success. Failure is inherent in startups and in entrepreneurship. In fact, uh, you know, as a fund, we constantly are backing second, third time entrepreneurs, some of whom may have failed in their earlier ventures. Even we recruit a lot of failed startup founders as analysts and associate within our firm, because we believe that having learned from their failures, they will be able to uh, give their knowledge, guidance to some of the companies we invest in. So, my young friends, I personally embrace entrepreneurship. I am all for individuals to do startups. It is truly a state of mind. You can be a startup founder, or you can even be working in a large corporate, but you need to be of a particular mindset to be an entrepreneur. It is only entrepreneurs who change the status quo. Always remember this single adage based on which I have written the book. Everything started from nothing. For me, it is more than the title of the book. Today, all of us are wowed by the large companies we see. We are awestruck by the CEOs of these companies, by the founders of these companies. But always remember that each and every one of these companies started either from a garage, or from a dorm room like yours, or from a single flat studio. So always enter the journey with your eyes open. Dream big, but again, with your eyes open. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was an amazing, like session. And I am I'm ending my second year in BTech, and I've been in eCell from very start. And these points were something I've learned बहुत like very calmly and from very much experience and stuff, but you presented it so nicely, and it was presented in such a way that I was like, yes, I want to know more and I want to get into this particular thing so much. So thank you for this uh, amazing session. uh, we'll proceed with few questions we have piled up, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. uh,
Sir, we'd love to know your journey first, like from a student at IIT Kharagpur, an engineering student, to an entrepreneur and now an investor and managing partner at Unicorn India Ventures. So, how did that go? How did that journey proceed? And at what point did you realize that you want to start your own startup and be an investor and entrepreneur?
Yeah, so back in Kharagpur when I was there, I I was very involved with a lot of uh, non-academic stuff, whether it was mostly in the organizing, social and cultural activities. I was very actively involved, within all of that. And I guess that gave me a grounding of leadership, if you will. Some of the points which I was saying in those days, I was out there raising money for our spring festival, small amounts of money by today's standards, but in those days these were big amounts of money, talking to corporates for sponsorships and all of that. I always knew I wanted to do something different. Very early on, in almost within 6 months of passing from the institute, uh, I started my own venture. I was raw. I didn't understand. It was in the area of cable television. I unfortunately started in Calcutta, which is definitely not the right place to start a business, even in those days. That business within 6, 8 months folded up. It didn't even start. I mean, I had an idea. I started pitching to people. I realized that there was no, while the idea was great, and in 1990 was when really the cable television boom started to happen in 91. So I had spotted the trend very well, but I couldn't sustain. There was no funding, nothing was there those days. Came from a family of doctors, so nobody knew what business was. I went back to a job. I knew I wanted to join a separate new industry. So from the campus, I had a job with Cadbury's, but I joined a new industry. I joined Times of India, and that was my entry into media. New industry country was opening up. I had a great stint with Times, then with ZTV, where I was responsible for the international rollout. With Alta Vista UK, where I understood the content business, and then I started my first business in 2001. I had spotted an opportunity that with broadband there was a need for content, and content existed in different libraries, forms. So set up a digital studio where I could digitize old content. That was the business I started with a friend of mine from IIT. As I mentioned, we got funding, started that business, did stuff around that business, scaled that business up, sold that business. Did another similar business, which again also I got out of. And then, having done two businesses, having had two exits, I uh, wanted more to play a larger role within the ecosystem rather than do one or two of my businesses, and that's how I started the fund. So on one hand, we fund startups, as I keep saying, but on the other hand, because it's a fund which we have started ourselves, it's not a part of a large global fund where we are merely employees. The fund itself is like a startup. So like in a startup, in the fund, we are out there raising money for the fund, we are recruiting people for the fund, changing offices for the fund. So the fund is also like a startup itself, and while we are funding other startups. So it's a great journey. I'm lucky to have had the journey of being an executive entrepreneur investor, thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm sure most of you all will be able to have very similar journeys, as long as you know what you want out of life.
uh, Sir, like you said, like based on your experience, and how would you recommend that college students like us choose a career path? Like we find it very difficult to see, like go. we don't know where we want to go. We want to go into tech, or we want to go into non-tech, or we want to start our own business. It's like everything is available, but we don't know how to choose because everything has their minus and plus and everything. So how would you
You know,
recommend we go about it?
it's a very good question you asked me. In another presentation I was giving, I had said the problem, and my son is similar age as all of you all. He's doing engineering MBA in University of Pennsylvania, so I know exactly your mindset because I see him. The problem and the challenge for most of you all, the what the advantage is also the biggest challenge for your generation is you all have too many options. Sometimes in life it is better not to have options. And I keep talking about Peter Thiel and his line that entrepreneurship has no optionality. I think life has to have reduced option. Otherwise you all have so many options. Exactly what you said. You know very correct. You sometimes think you can be an entrepreneur, you can do a job, you can do tech coding job, you can do your MBA, you can do this. So it is very important to know. And of course, I'm not saying you will discover on your way. I'm not saying that I knew exactly this is how the journey will be. Far from it. I went along the journey. Sometimes I think you must broadly know what you want to do in life, but also not over plan. Sometimes I see kids like you are over planning that if I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. Life takes its own course. I'm not saying you be a total wild spirit and let things happen. You broadly have to know an area where you want to enter, and then you just flow along. Don't overthink, over plan, but don't also keep too many options. So I know it's a tough answer I gave, doesn't make sense, but that's what it is.
So, sir, there are many business enthusiasts here, including me, who wish to like launch their own startups and become an entrepreneur. So, for people who have an idea currently, and so what would you advise them to? How should they execute? How should they make the idea into a reality? What should be done in order to achieve that?
Yeah, let me give you a typical journey. If you have an idea, uh, and I presume it would be a tech idea, uh, I think you should do the product first. You create a product out there. Uh, Today, you can create low cost products. It is important, even if you don't create your product, full product. What can also happen is nowadays there are these Vimeo videos which you can create, which shows the entire capability of the product. But what you do is you create a small portion of the product. That is very important. You do that, and after you have a product, you go out there, try to raise some money. You have to have money to grow businesses today, especially in internet business. Not much, small money. You have to try to raise from friends and family. Be very careful how you raise money, because the first money you raise should be such that it doesn't spoil the foundations of the company. And also, when you raise this money from friends and family, be sure that they understand that this money is gone. So raise only that much from an individual who can survive that entire loss of that money. you know then go about launching it slowly. You have to go about it. Most importantly, you need to get people whom you can trust, you can talk to, seniors from the college, other entrepreneurs, getting into it and asking questions.
Okay. So, sir, there's this very related question in the chat box itself. The Aditya asked that before proceeding to create your own venture, do we need to get a job experience
I think,
first, or
I
do
think, yeah, I've seen Aditya's question. I think, Aditya, it's a good question. My personal view is yes. My personal view is yes. Uh, Although, we have funded at least 3 or 4 companies directly of college, straight from the campus guys. But I think it is important to understand a bit about the what the world is all about. And therefore, of course, we all are glamorized by stories of Mark Zuckerberg, uh, from the campus, Bill Gates from the campus, all of that is there. But still, I think my personal take, if you ask me, I think you need to get yourself exposed to understand a bit about the nitty gritties of life before you get on to doing your own venture.
So, what we have seen that UIV invest mainly in B2B companies, which
Yeah.
are business to business companies, that is. So, what are the criteria that you see in a founder, like as well as in the businesses, and what all kinds of question do you ask all those founders and their startups, like before investing in them?
So let me take the question in two aspects. One is the softer aspect. Softer aspect is we try to gauge all the things that I spoke about the individual of the founder. And honestly, for me, that is more important because the company is so much early in their cycle that whatever plan you have is bound to change. So on the softer side, we try to see it's not a single founder company. We obviously do a lot of due diligence on the background of the founder, companies where he's worked for, other people he has worked with. We try to find out, we take a 3 month, 4 month due diligence process during which time we work closely with the founder to see his nature, whether he or she can take market feedback, work along with us, or is very headstrong about their idea. These are the softer side where we have a feedback. From a business perspective, we try to understand how big the market is. That is very important for us to understand the size of the market, or is it a little niche that the company is serving. There are some answers which we totally detest and we walk away from. One is whenever I ask the question, who's your competition? Some people come and say there is no competition. That means either you're trying to do something so small that there is no competition, or you've not understood what competitive market really means. So there are competition from every side. So, these are things that we see this type of maturity. And also we stay away for investing in businesses where already the big guys have come into it. So for example, if obviously this, now we will never invest in an e-commerce company because e-commerce we think is done and dusted, or in a B2B context, we would still not do a company which is, let's say, in the providing a B2B logistics solution, because there are very large B2B logistics companies. So we stay away from, because we are early stage investor, we stay away from from markets which have already sort of scaled up and a lot of monies have gone into it. We want to be the first, or among the early movers in newer markets, so that we nurture those markets as early stage investors.
Sir,
So I'm sorry. There's this question in the chat box. I'm guessing that it can be continued in the previous question. It says, "Where can I approach for startup funding and discuss the idea?" Like
Yeah, I
these
mean,
two
there is a
questions.
lot of angel networks now. Your first point of call should be to the angel networks. uh, you know you should try to discuss it with some of the angel networks that are there. Mumbai Angel, Indian Angels. There's a lot of angel networks. You should try your positions with these angel networks. If not the angel networks, then you can go on Angel List and other places. There are but most importantly, you must talk to your founders and other people well, and talk more importantly to seniors from your institute who have done other businesses and people like that.
Okay. Let
so,
me continue.
sir, is there something according to you which lacks in startups, like mainly Indian startups? Because data shows that more than 90% of the startups fail in the first few years, and that's a very drastic fact. For example, no one would want to go in a school where more than 90% of the students fail, or similar examples. So, what do you think is the main reasons why
It's
most of
it's
the
not
startups
Indian
fail?
startups. It's not Indian startups. I think that's the definition of the beast called startups. Whether it's 90% or 60%, I don't know. I don't have statistics, but yes, there's a huge amount of startups which fail. But that's the nature of the beast. So again, failure, as I keep saying, is not the end of the world. uh, Indian startups are very different. Every country actually has its own nuance of startups, and Indian startups are also, unique to India from that perspective. Um, India, I keep saying, is not a place where innovation happens, and there's absolutely nothing wrong in that. It's not a derogatory statement at all. India is a market, and different type of market innovations happen in India. India is a scale up market. There are ideas globally which happen. India is the one that scales it up. India is basically a market which is optimizing. Indian startups are basically optimizing the lacunae in India, and that's the correct thing to do. No point in doing tech for the sake of tech, like sometimes in the US you do. Here you are creating startups which are solving real problems that are faced by the country, and I think Indian startups are amazing from that perspective.
So, sir, do you think there are any common reasons based on your experiences why some companies go down or they fail? Are there any common reasons, and are there any
Yeah, common reasons in the early stage is lack of funding, very common. The second reason is sometimes nothing is wrong with the company, but the market has changed. I mean, we've had companies which have gone under and we had to shut, although the company was doing well, simply because one big player decided to come into that market and you can't sustain that. Third reason is, interpersonal relationship between the co-founders. Very much it happens. One co-founder might have entered the company for one reason, other wanted to enter it to make money, and when that person sees that money is not happening in the short run, that person feels it's not worth his or her time. That's the other reason. The other reason could be, and again, it's again a market related reason. In startups, mostly the first mover advantage doesn't stay. People who tried first fail. It is the second or the third guys who come and really take the juice out of the market. So these are some of the reasons that are there.
Yeah.
So
So,
there's this question in the chat box, and like lots of people want to know. It says in colleges like IITs, NITs, and NSUT DTU, people have come after giving competitive exams. So at some level, we face adversity, and still we all know entrepreneurship is not for everyone. So in this competitive environment where people generally have similar mindsets, how to dig up and embrace that entrepreneurial zeal within us, how to know if it is the thing for me, even if my mind aches for it.
This is what I said. Between you have to really do strong introspection. I mean, if you are a good student and all these institutes you've mentioned are very structured, uh, and if you thrive only in a structured environment, then entrepreneurship initially is not for you. Because especially in startups, you need to be very, very nimble, think on the feet, you know, assume there is nothing structured, just you don't know what tomorrow will be like. These are very difficult things, because all the institutes you've mentioned, it's very, very structured environment. You go for an exam, you know what an exam is, the course is there, you have faculty who teaches you that course, then you get into it, you like a particular area, you do your masters in that. These are very structured thinking, but entrepreneurship is as unstructured as possible. So you'll get a feel that if you want to survive on entrepreneurship, and if you don't get that feel and you want to do it because someone who has done it has got a lot of monies, he's raised in the company and he's written about in economic times, then you're going for the wrong reason and you'll fail. So that's the point which I'm trying to say.
Okay. Sir, also there's this question which comes popping in my head when I talk to young people who want to start their businesses. It's that do we like do we open our ideas to people? Because there are people out there in the name of mentors, they are taking up our ideas.
Very good
They
question, Manasi.
they
Very, basically will position themselves as mentors and advisors, but they, I must be very blatant about it, they will try to get a lot out of these companies. So you will have to be very careful with these people, because they will ask for some fees for you, they will ask for some inordinate shares from you, and you will land up getting duped, if I may be very
Yeah.
blatant. So you have to be very careful, and it's a very good question, it's a very practical question. Manasvi, I'm running out of time, I have something else to catch up, so if it's okay,
Okay.
we fold up?
Yeah, sir. We can fold up. I'll just take the questions in the chat box if
Sure,
it may, because they are from the audience.
sure.
There are few. I'll just. Uh,
Someone has
I,
asked me, is it okay to open your ideas to others? I've answered that. I think you have to open your ideas
yeah.
there, go and ask more and more people from that space the questions.
So there was one question I
Yeah,
had from
there's
Miss
a
Please.
question. Just a sec. Let me just go through the chat box. Kartike has asked, is it right to make, I keep saying this, and I encourage people within my firm also to take decisions. Wrong decisions will come, but it's better than not taking any decision at all. So, on that, I think you have to be up there.
And there's this question from Kesha.
So, Keshav has asked a good question about unprofitable unicorns. It's a tough thing to answer in a 1 minute sentence, but all the unicorns that are happening today are basically those who are out there trying to capture the market. So whenever a new industry opens up, whenever a new market share, new trend opens up, it becomes a sort of land grab and marketplace acquisition. So because of that, all these companies are unprofitable, but they are scaling up. Of course, there are some companies who don't even have revenues and have unicorn status. I'm against those companies, but companies like Big Basket who have substantial revenues but are still loss making, that's very different. So we can't just go through that answer quickly, but that's fundamentally the point.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir. It was an amazing session. You answered and cleared most of our doubts we faced in our earlier periods. To be clear about stuff, to help us make a decision, and maybe to, and you also made us a better judge of people, of things, and how to execute it. It was really a
thanks.
pleasure to
It
host
was
you.
great. Yeah, it was great for me also to talk to you all.
It
And
was,
yeah, if you guys can buy the book, because a lot of these questions are answered in the book.
we will surely, sir, we will surely
Yes, sir.
buy the book and have a read. And thank you, thank you so much, sir, for being here today
All right.
and for
Thank
giving
you.
us your time.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
from the behalf of NSUT and the students.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
For the audience, thank you all for joining us today. It was amazing, and I hope the session was good experience for you. I hope you took a lot with you home.
Thank you, everyone.